This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Buzzard Roost Saddles. Buzzard Roost Saddles was born in the swamps of Santa Maria, South Louisiana, and their purpose is to get you standing over your next carcass so you can pick them clean. Proudly made in the USA, every Buzzard Roost saddle is handcrafted with a patent-pending system that brings you independent angle adjustments on your top and bottom panels to provide ultimate comfort. Standing by their motto, "We ain't fancy," Buzzard Roost helps you get the job done without making things overcomplicated. If you're looking for the next tool in your hunting arsenal, you can connect with Buzzard Roost Saddles on Facebook and Instagram, or you can visit their website at buzzardroostsaddles.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Hunt the Wild podcast. I'm your host, Adam Bowlds. I'm back after a little bit of a break, guys. Need to step back and take care of some things, and went on vacation with my family down to Fort Myers Beach, Florida. So that was fun. I've got Eric Clark from Okayest Hunter on the show this evening. We'll be picking his brain on the Okayest Hunter podcast and kind of how they came up with the idea of it and what the Okayest Hunter podcast is all about, and anything else we feel like talking about. So how you doing, Eric? I'm going to throw Eric up here on the screen and we'll jump into it. Eric, could you kind of tell everybody a little bit just about yourself, maybe outside the podcast, what you like to do, that sort of thing, and then we'll kind of roll with it.
Yeah, outside the podcast, I'm a dad, I'm a husband. I love the outdoors. It's my release. It's my get back to neutral, recharge the batteries. I'm really mainly only obsessed with hunting whitetail. I tried turkey hunting. I've tried duck hunting once each. It was fine, but it's not the same as deer hunting for me. So certainly, that's a year round something that I think about. And in addition to that, I'm also pretty obsessed with business and marketing. So, my leisure revolves around all of those things and how I tie those things together. So that's something that I put a lot of energy and effort into. You can usually find me listening to a hunting podcast or a business podcast.
So before we kind of jump into what Okayest Hunter is all about, why would you say that deer hunting is your thing? Why is it your favorite? What draws you in that direction instead of off somewhere else?
I'm sure, as any deer hunter that might be listening and your audience could attest, it's something that seeps into your bones. For me, at least, it was my dad that got me into it. Quite literally, he taught me some things. He got me the gear. He got me set up. He showed me some things, and but I was already interested in it well before that had even happened, just in the sense that I would go and track whitetails without hunting them, and I would climb a tree and sit there for hours on end in hopes to see one. And I was just obsessed with being outside. And there's something about autumn or fall and that time of year and just having a deep desire to just be in the woods. And for me, just hunting whitetail is just incredible. I'm not saying that I'm great at it, but I just love the experience. And as I've hunted over the years, I've continued to leverage nature to ground myself.
So was deer hunting the first thing that you experienced when you were younger, or did you try out small game or something like that first?
I'd never done any small game. I still haven't. I'm excited to try it at some point. I know Greg, who runs the podcast with me, does a bit of small game hunting. I got a buddy that I hunt whitetail with that's also into small game hunting. So it's certainly something that I want to try. I've heard it's a lot of fun. It's very different than, whitetail hunting. And you don't have to worry about scent control and maybe sitting still forever and all that stuff. But, whitetail hunting for me is the creme de la creme. It's what I care most about. And that's only to say that I haven't elk hunted yet. So we'll see what happens when I get to that point in my life. I'm sure that'll have a whole different meaning on my life and what I do with that. But it's very accessible. I can go bow hunt, whitetail, any given day of the week come hunting season, barring that my wife can handle our 3 kids. So
yeah, I mean, small game hunting, I hear a lot of people, and myself included, go squirrel hunting in, August, September and all that stuff to not only squirrel hunt, but kind of scout and prep for deer season, and kind of just gives you an excuse to kind of be out there. And and all that stuff. But I want to jump into the Okayest Hunter brand and the Okayest Hunter podcast. Just where did you come up with it? Were you just, sitting at work one day and you're like, I'm going to start a podcast, or was it like something you thought about for years? Kind of give the rundown on how you got going doing all that.
I certainly did think about it for years to some degree, but to give the full story, I do have to back up quite a bit to, I think, like 2013 or something. So
Okay.
long before Okayest Hunter ever existed, it was Where to Hunt, not to be confused with Wired to Hunt, because I am certainly no Mark Kenyon, far more articulate than I am, and he wrote a book and stuff. So, but Mark's a good dude. So nonetheless, I started Where to Hunt off the back of app development, which was an app that helps hunters identify occupied and unoccupied hunting land. And that was fine. I think the first go of that app, we got 10,000 downloads, and I had built a community prior to the app. So it was Facebook community, an effort to find intel on public lands that were close to home. This is before the DNR locally in Wisconsin had done much to provide digital tools to determine where you can access public hunting land. So Facebook community grew overnight to, like 10,000. Then the app came, and then the podcast. And maybe the order's wrong. I don't remember. It's a long time ago. But the podcast was meant to strengthen and build upon that community that was created, and share that, oh, by the way, we have an app. And through doing that podcast, I quickly went on the offense and started calling myself the Okayest Hunter to some degree, because I didn't have huge trophies on my wall. I was doing a podcast to learn about hunting selfishly and to build a community. And that worked to a degree, but there was nothing that really significantly differentiated Where to Hunt from any other podcast that was talking about hunting tactics and tips and sharing knowledge and talking to all of the same people that, run on most podcast circuits. And as being on the offense and calling myself the Okayest Hunter and suddenly the Okayest podcast in the Midwest and so forth, that started to strike a chord. And somewhere along the way in 2017, the year my daughter was born, which is crazy to think that she's going to be 4, or she's going to be 5. She's going to be 5. I can't do math. But when I shot my first deer with a bow, it was a doe fawn from the ground at about 10 yards. And I was sitting up against a tree, and she was cresting up on a bit of I wouldn't say a hill, but above me in a wooded, hardwood area. And, I just didn't see that she was a doe fawn. I was just really excited to finally let an arrow loose on a deer, for the first time ever, because I was a bit of an adult onset hunter, especially when it came to bow. I started with gun first and eventually worked my way into bow because my dad gave me a hand-me-down. So I shot this doe. My dad happened to be with me. He was in a different area in the same woods. And when I walked up on this thing, I was like, oh my God, it's a fawn. It's tiny. But it was still a really important moment for me. And the fact that my dad was there, here I am as a 30 or 31-year-old dude, and I felt like I was 12 years old next to my dad. I felt like a kid because it was a first. It was a first public land deer with a bow, from the ground. It just happened to be a doe fawn. And it was a pretty big moment for me. And so I shared that photo that my dad took me with my bow laid across this doe fawn that wasn't much bigger than my bow. And I got shit on for it pretty heavily. And that was messed up to me. I'm like, you don't know anything about my hunting journey, where I'm at. The fact that, I was adult onset with this stuff. This is my first one. It's publics from the ground. There are variables. Other than my dad, it was very meaningful to me for that reason. Not to mention, by the way, it was really easy to drag out of the woods and it tasted great. But those things aside, I was like, what is wrong with people? I'm a hunter. We're hunters. Like, why is this a problem? You're not ethical. You're a piece of crap. I can't believe you'd kill that thing. That's Bambi. My dog's bigger than that. Like, you're an idiot. And I got dog piled on this stuff. And then I felt regret for having posted it. I felt ashamed. And I then started to believe, well, maybe I am unethical. Maybe that was a poor choice. Like, what is wrong with me? But it was a heart shot and it died quick. And so my bow was accurate. I was on the ground. I did what I came to do. And I was able to, provide for my family that year. I love having venison in the freezer, honestly. So with that all said, I had our podcast going and I was starting to tell people, like, I bought the domain name Humble Hunter. And then I eventually learned that there was a girl that goes by Humble Huntress. So that was out of there. I thought there needed to be less ego a focus on humble pie. And then I was like, well, I'm only okay at this stuff. I've been kind of saying that. I wonder if this domain name is available. So I bought it, and then I sat on it for a while. I pitched it to a couple buddies. They're like, yeah, I don't really get it, and we're not going to do it. I'm like, all right, whatever. So then eventually I pitched it to another buddy who was now a buddy. He wasn't a buddy at the time. He was a listener of the podcast. I got coffee with him, and he was like, this idea is great. I totally get it. I see what you're talking about. He had been a victim of victim of deer shaming. That sounds so weird. He's like, yeah, you have experience that shit sucks. So we late 2019 kicked off Okayest Hunter Instagram page. And back when we started, if you go back far enough, the logo was the OK symbol you would make with your hand. Well, I didn't know or realize that shortly thereafter, that was suddenly had become the international symbol for hate or something weird.
Oh,
like, what? Why would that be the symbol for hate? It's always meant okay. So then somewhere, I think in 2020 during the pandemic, I got bored during lunch and I made what is now our logo because I do graphic design. And 2020, June of 2020, we officially codified our LLC and launched our store, OKSHunter.com. So we then officially had a website, but prior to that, we did bonfire.com. We put our logo on some t-shirts to see if people liked it, and we sold out. Like, all right, well, let's try a Shopify and let's get this website live. And it has just grown significantly since then. So that's the bit of the backstory, as to how it started. So it's built off the back of, let's end deer shaming. This is bullshit. We're all hunters. We should be on the same team. And as we started to dig into that, we started to discover more and more stuff that aligns with what we're trying to do here.
Now, do you guys have a t-shirt or a hoodie that says victim of deer shaming?
Oh, no, we don't have one of those. We do have
I would definitely wear that.
Yeah. No, it's a problem. It really is. And we're in the trenches on that daily, especially right now. Like the amount of comments that we go in to bat on is just ridiculous. And honestly, it's not a fight fire with fire thing. I'm trying to transcend it and rise above and educate some people that there's a bigger picture here at play, and what's bad for the hive is bad for the bee. And our industry is really, really, really small. When you take this stuff to the polls, we lose no matter what. There's no winning. We are vastly outnumbered. Hunters make up maybe 10% of the population, probably 6%. And most of the people going to the polls are not hunters. And if they are hunters, again, we're such a small percentage of the population that we're just outnumbered. So if some Democrats or whatever you want to, I'm not getting in politics here, but if they start introducing bills to strip away the things that we love, we're going to lose. And so we shouldn't be fighting amongst ourselves. There's a battle out there we need to fight. So that's kind of, thinking a little bit bigger and not being like, I can't believe you shot that spike buck. Well, that's it. That we can tackle that problem later. But for now, we need to get along and recognize that someone paid money for their tag, and their circumstances and hunting journey is different than yours, probably. So let's not tell people what to do with their tag, and instead let's just focus on being, decent to one another, and try to make sure that we can actually fight a battle if we need to, because it's happening. Like, you can look at the Pittman Robertson Act stuff that's coming down the pike currently. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, I think it's bad when you have guys that are probably, they go out every time and they could shoot 130s every time they go out, and then they'll turn around and bash a guy that maybe hunts public, and maybe he's been hunting 1 or 2 years. He's hunting with a bow and he shoots a spike, but that's the only deer he's seen all year. From their side, I see man, why is he shooting a spike? We see big deer all the time, but they don't understand that other little guy, he might not see very many deer a year. And I don't know, man, I try to stay away from that stuff too, but it always seems to be able to find me. Can you explain to everybody kind of where the My Tag, My Hunt came from?
It came from someone else, and I don't remember who it was.
Oh, really?
It wasn't even ours, but someone said, dude, it's your tag, it's your hunt. Like, who cares? And I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Can we use that? And honestly, I wish I do remember who it was, and maybe they could speak up, because I'd love to give them credit for it. But it resonated so closely to what we were doing that it made so much sense to adopt. And, what we did come up with was never pass. And we did that to be abrasive and obtuse on purpose because we got sick of people saying, you should have passed. And we're like, how about you don't tell me what the hell to do? and in addition to that, we say never pass on making memories, never pass on a chance to fill your freezer, never pass on shooting what makes you happy. So it does unpack to be more than just, we're not trying to be an a-hole. Or trying to create some friction here to get people to stop, to pay attention, to open their eyes and realize, maybe you should consider some other ideologies here, because some of the big buck mentality stuff, which we're not shaming on that either, because it is your tag and your hunt. So if you want to chase a 200-inch deer or a 10-inch spike, like, it doesn't matter. We're on the same team. But for some reason, it's this one school of thought that's been institutionalized over, I don't know, the last decade or two, that we only need to be shooting big deer. And what I've seen and what we've seen at Okayest Hunter is literally children that hunt, kids, will not shoot any deer because it's not a 180-inch deer, because that's what they see on YouTube. And therefore, they're not getting any exposure to what it's like to shoot a deer. They're not getting any practice, any real world experience. They're literally holding out and expecting that they ought to be seeing one of those caliber deer out of the gate. And the analogy that I've used time and time again is, look, you're not going to go to the gym and walk out chiseled the next day, especially if you're 400 pounds. Even if you've got a dad bod, it's going to take some time to, get rid of the fat and tone up a little bit. It's a process. And the only way to get there is by doing the work and doing the push-ups and lifting the weights and squeezing the trigger and drawing back and taking some shots. And that's when you make memories. When you fail, especially, you solder that failure into your mind and you learn from failure. If you're only thinking you're going to have success and you're only going to see big deer, that is a sad reality. And you might get lucky out of the gate, and then every other hunt's going to suck for you for a long time, because you're going to learn real quick that that's not how it always goes. So that's, I don't remember the question specifically, but that's, a little bit of, like, my tag, my hunt, never pass, shooter buck, is something we talk about a lot, and that's in the eye of the beholder. A shooter to you might be different than a shooter to me, and that's okay, because we're at different places in our hunting journey.
Now, I won't throw out any names here, but you said, kids or whatever, or whoever it might be, it doesn't have to be kids, will see these giants getting killed on YouTube or whatever, and then they go to their woods and they don't shoot a deer. Maybe there's not one in there. What does a guy do if he feels like he needs to kill a Boone and Crockett buck, but he doesn't have property to hunt that has that on it? Say he has one property, one piece of public around him. It's pretty small. He's done all the inventory, and it's just like full of basket rack bucks.
That's a circumstantial thing. And if that's your
Yeah.
reality, then maybe you make do and you kill what you can to get your reps in. So you get comfortable and confident at full draw. And then you look to do some out of state hunts, or you jump a couple counties over, or you take a trip, or you get in touch with some guides that know what they're doing, and have access to something that maybe you don't. And that looks like a lot of different things, right? There's probably a bunch of topics and podcasts you could do on that subject all by itself. But you still got to get the reps in, because even if you haven't shot those deer, because it's not the caliber you want, and then you finally get to the big league where, maybe you go to Iowa and there's big bucks everywhere, you're going to shit your pants. And if you've never placed a shot before from a stand or from the ground, or from whatever position you're trying to shoot from, that arrow's going to go sailing over the back. You're going to injure an animal. You're going to have a pretty poor experience, and so is that animal. So, like, get good at getting good so you can place ethical shots. And that comes down to practice too. Of course, you should be practicing with how you intend to shoot. If you're going to hunt out of a saddle, you should probably take a couple shots out of a saddle. If you're going to hunt from a tree stand, you should probably take a couple shots from a tree stand, and so forth. But there's nothing that can replace real world experience. I could have my wife pitch some baseballs to me, and I could slug them out of the park. But until I, square up on the home plate and a MLB pitcher sends a ball flying down, like, I'm not going to hit that. How are you going to get good at hitting that? You're going to have to try it out. You're going to have to, at some point, take enough swings at a batting cage or something that's going to be of that caliber.
Why do you think that people get so wrapped up in what other people care about their kills? Is it like who's better than who thing, or do you think people just want to like argue? I mean, why does anyone really care? I like to say that I don't care, but maybe deep down I do. But I tell myself that I don't care, but I don't know. Like, why do I care what some guy in Iowa thinks about my deer?
It is a world of social media to some degree, right? That is something that we're dealing with. I will point to Stoic philosophy a little bit, and I'll tell you that it is really challenging to take the higher ground in some of these conversations that are happening on social media. I'd be lying if I didn't say it didn't get my blood boiling, because it does. I get pretty fired up, and especially because someone's attacking the brand that I'm working to build. This is like my fourth child to me. So, but then I realized, like, again, I have to kind of preach what I say, or say what I preach, or whatever the terminology there is. But look, there's three things that happen according to Stoicism when you consider the ego. Everybody has an ego, everybody, and there's a spectrum, right? Not everyone is an egotistical maniac, but everyone has some semblance of ego. And Ryan Holiday is someone that I follow in the Stoic world, and he has a book called "Ego is the Enemy," and he'll talk about how success will feed your ego, and how that's probably not great, under the context of success can breed, or at least has the potential to cause a couple of things. One of those things is entitlement, and people thinking that maybe they're entitled to a big buck, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're having success, you now believe that you're entitled to having more of that success. And if that success is big bucks, then you think that you are entitled to big bucks. And maybe that's because you found a honey hole. Maybe that's because you're hunting private land. But you freaking, by golly, believe that since you got good at that, you now are of that caliber. It's hard for people to go backwards with things. And that's in society, and that's in hunting, and so forth. Like, now that I have a truck, by the way, I don't want to not have a truck. Now that I have a house, I don't want to not have a house. Like, if I got a 12-point buck, I don't want to shoot an 8-point buck, right? We only want to go upwards. The other thing out of three is paranoia can start to develop. You start to have some success. Now you're paranoid that everyone else will decimate the deer herd of good genes and big bucks. And now I'm paranoid that you're going to mess up the gene pool. Therefore, I'm not going to have an opportunity at these big bucks that I'm striving for. Third is control. So three things: ego is breeding, right? It's entitlement, it's paranoia, and it's control. And under the control context, it's like control over how others use their tags. You're going to tell me how to use my tag now because you want to control what's happening, so you can fulfill the entitlement and breed more success around the thing that you think that you have, right? And that might not be true. I'm applying something to deer hunting that might not actually fit, but boy, oh boy, does that sound like it fits. And when I talk to Michael Waddell and Doug Durin, people that I revere and respect that have some more authority in this space than I do, they talk about ego in hunting, and it's a problem. There's some literal antler measuring contests that are going on here. And I'm trying to say with Okayest Hunter, what we're trying to say is that that's okay if that's what like gets your piss hot. But there's more to a hunt than that by our standards. It's time spent with family members that you care about, whether it's your dad, your grandpa, your uncle, your best friend, whoever it is, your mom. It's memories made afield. It's taking in what God has created. It's an opportunity to be still. It's an opportunity to fill your freezer and feed your family. There's so much more than just the antlers. And that's it. And it's also antlers. Like, I would love to decorate my house with freaking huge bucks. You kidding me? I would love that. Of course I would love that. But there's also a recognition of the reality that I live in, that I have 2 side hustles, a day job, which is a career, and 3 kids. So right now, that just can't be the focus for me, because to kill a mature buck, it takes a lot. There's a lot you need to know and do, and time you have to have in the woods to execute against that. And if I was killing big bucks with the 2 or 3 days of the year that I get to hunt, I'd be a really, really good hunter, like, or really lucky. Instead, I recognize that I'm okay, and that's okay for now.
Yeah, I think if you look at like the whole hunting community and you kind of break it down into like subgroups, you kind of got guys that don't really care. They just want to shoot a deer. And then you have guys on the other end of the spectrum, like you said, that care about measuring antlers and all that stuff. I think if those groups within the whole community would just, do their thing, but be nice to the other ones, I think we'd be all right. But I don't know if we'll ever get there. Like you said,
Yeah.
the ego thing, man,
It's interesting. We're running ads and we're putting out so much content. The number of posts or comments that I see and stuff that we're putting out is like, well, you must not kill big bucks. And I'm like, have you seen our logo? Have you seen our brand? Like, do you even like, no shit. We don't kill. Like,
Yeah.
we're not saying we do. Hello. But why do you think that that's what I care about? Like, my goals aren't your goals, dude. I don't care about that. Well, maybe you should. You're not, that's not a good message for conservation. I'm like, well, there's quality deer management, QDMA, which I'm not bashing them at all, but there's healthy deer management. Are you considering CWD? Are you considering that you ought to be shooting a younger buck before it has a chance to fricking decimate the herd with CWD before it gets older? Because it's in its peak fricking breeding stage when it's a young buck. And by the way, we can relate to that as young dudes. What were we doing at 21? Chasing fricking women, right? Versus an older buck. I don't give a shit about that. I care about my family and my wife. Like, so again, that's not taking the whole picture and different circumstances into consideration. And people just need to be more cognizant that like the world you live in isn't the world. So if I'm hunting in Texas, it's different than hunting in Pennsylvania. If I'm hunting in Pennsylvania, it's different than Florida. If I'm hunting in Florida, it's different than Wisconsin, Michigan, not Portland, like Oregon or wherever. Like it's different everywhere. And also different states have different regulations. Like you might not even be able to shoot a spike in some states. In other states, go nuts or 10 does or 2 does. Like it's just vastly different. In addition to that, you have the context of the hunter themselves and where they're at in their journey. So just because a guy looks like he's 50 because he is, doesn't mean that that's his 50th hunt or whatever. Like it could be his first, which we had someone that was 50, was it 54? 54 reach out to us last week and share a picture. It was his first freaking deer hunt at age 54. I guarantee that guy shows a picture of a doe or a spike, he's getting shit on. But no one knows that was his first hunt.
Bet you he's grinning ear to ear though.
Of course he is, and maybe it's my last hunt with my grandpa or my first hunt with my kid. Like there's a spectrum here that exists that, again, kindness should just prevail. When you don't have the context of what's going on, you might want to consider some things first. I saw a video of I don't know what happened in the video. I didn't have all the context of the video, but like from what I could gather, some dude was like eyeballing this other buff guy, and it bothered him so much that he went and pushed him. And what he didn't realize is the guy eyeballing was freaking blind. So he just pushed the blind guy, and he immediately felt like remorse and like was apologetic and so forth. But don't attack someone before you have all of the information. Take a second.
So back to the kid seeing the 180 or whatever killed on YouTube, and he's trying to kill that buck or whatever. Do you think not only is the person shooting the 180 kind of passing that down to him that you need to shoot a 180, but do you think the people like that maybe that kid or whatever looks up to, do you think they pass down you need to buck shame other people? I guess like what I'm asking is, do you think there's a lot of buck shaming on social media by people that haven't actually killed deer that caliber? So for example, I jump on social media and I'm like, why would you kill blah, blah, blah? You should only be killing 130s, but I've never killed a 130 in my life. You think that goes on a lot?
Sure, there's trolls. I had a 16-year-old tell us what we should be doing with our stuff. And I was like, I said, hey, fella, you can come talk to us in 15 years when you get to my age. And I'll listen a little bit more closely to what you have to say. But here's some things to consider along the way. So perhaps, like I don't need a 16-year-old lecturing me on how to do time management, which he was trying to do. I'm like, you literally have no concept. You have no freaking idea what it's like to serve someone else through marriage and be a father and like have a career. Like you just, but that's an opportunity for me to like teach that kid something, right? So to your question, yeah, I think there probably are people that are trying to pontificate things that they've had no experience doing themselves. Do I think that guy killing 180-inch deer is trying to send that message? No. However, traditional TV inadvertently had done that. And I feel bad for them because that wasn't the goal or the intention. It was a byproduct of having such a massive audience that they couldn't show failure. They couldn't show silly moments because it would paint the wrong picture to anybody stumbling into that through cable TV. So then the only thing that they ever did show was the success. So then everyone thought you go out in the woods and you kill a big deer, and that's how it is. That's how they do it on TV. In reality, that's not what's really going on. They didn't show you the freaking 18 misses that they had that season because that's not allowed, right? Why would they show? That's not what people want to see. So they don't even,
Yeah.
those edits don't even make final production. On YouTube, it's different. Now we have the hunting public, and I think they're doing a lot of great. Like I think they put a video out of like the top 5 misses of last year, and they
Yeah.
wolfed a whole bunch of them. And that is good for the community to see that even those guys they're putting in the reps. They have the time in the woods. They're not going to kill every damn deer they come across. They're going to make mistakes.
Hey guys, real quick ad from our sponsors over at Buzzard Roost Saddles. Buzzard Roost Saddles are proudly made in the USA, and their independent angle adjustments on the top and bottom panels provide the ultimate comfort for those long sits. Buzzard Roost stands by their motto, "We ain't fancy," and they help you achieve your goal while keeping things simple. You can connect with Buzzard Roost Saddles on Facebook and Instagram, or you can visit their website at buzzardroostsaddles.com.
Now, no one wants to see an animal getting injured, so I agree that we probably shouldn't show that, because if it's going onto the internet where literally anybody can see it, if you shoot a deer and you injure it and we don't recover it, that makes hunters look bad. So there is a fine line there, but for us, we try to celebrate the failures that happen in what I would call like micro moments, or we've deemed okayest moments, where you forget to release, you drop this thing, you goof that shot, like the shot doesn't even go off. There's 100 things that go wrong before you even have an opportunity. Maybe you farted and the wind blew to the deer. Like stuff like that happens all the time to the best hunters. And we've interviewed some of the best hunters, and they've shared those moments with us. And we did that intentionally to show and pave the way that, like, look, even the greats make mistakes. How do you think they learned? How do you think they got good? They got good by putting in the reps, trying, failing, and eventually they started to learn enough through that failure to not make those mistakes anymore. And they still make them. It's okay.
Overall, do you think social media has had a positive or a negative impact on, I guess the hunting community as a whole? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but I'm curious.
If I'm quoting Gary Vee, social media is the slang term for the modern state of the internet. So human beings are going to do what human beings are going to do. Literally, I'm reading a book for the second time through called The Laws of Human Nature, trying to distill how humans function at the core basic level. And every human thinks that they are intelligent to some degree within their realm, whether that's a plumber that has intelligence around the inner workings of a house and how they apply their skill set and their mechanical skills and their political disposition. They all think they're intelligent. Humans all think they're intelligent. They all think they have autonomy, that they made their own choices, that they weren't manipulated. Even if your boss told you to do something, you'll find a way to say, like, no, I made that choice. And I'm forgetting the third off the top of my head because I'm too wrapped up in getting the answer here. Autonomy, intelligence, and all humans think that in their own perspective, they are good. Everyone thinks that they themselves are good. So know that when you're arguing with someone, that person thinks that they are right and good and intelligent in their own way and are acting autonomously. And so when I consider those 3 things, can you rephrase the question?
Yeah, just like kind of overall, should we keep posting on social media as hunters or not?
Yes. So when I consider those 3 things against social media, human beings are going to do what human beings are going to do. This happened when literally when the printing press was invented, people thought that was going to ruin the way we did things. Like you're going to make people lazy. Like words were meant to be written on a piece of paper. I can't believe you're going to mass produce this stuff. You're going to make everyone stupid and lazy. This is not acceptable. Radio, TV, so on and so forth. Same stuff. Now, social media is different. We have yet to see anything like this, and it's still in its infancy. We're only like 15 years into social media, and so consider that against the duration of human beings being, in where we're at, 200,000 years or whatever, and it's very new to us. It's not normal to interact with this many other human beings. That is a newer phenomenon. Is social media bad for hunting? No, I think it's probably pretty good because more people are getting exposed to it. We did a post the other day about 10% of the population being hunters, 10% being anti-hunters. Well, you got 80% of people that are just, they've never even thought of hunting. They don't even consider hunting. It's not even something that they would ever have paid any attention to. And now they might be seeing it, right? So we have an opportunity as hunters to captivate non-hunters, people that aren't going to go out of their way to be a-holes to us, like the antis. Um, and so if those people are exposed to it, we can bring them into the fold. I think Meat Eater has done a really good job of that. Like they're the only ones with some sort of show on Netflix. Netflix is colossal, and anybody could trip their way into what the hell is this Meat Eater thing. They could trip their way into one of Vernella's books, especially the one they just put out for kids. So, and not to mention all the various podcasts that he has too. So he's casting a pretty wide net. He's definitely probably been a modern pioneer of bringing new people that aren't hunters into the fold. And us existing hunters fear some of that because these people aren't like us. They're not of the same mind. They haven't been brought up this way. But I look at that as a positive. Like we need more numbers at the polls. We need more people that can vote on our behalf to keep this stuff around for generations to come. So, with social media, it's got its bad, and that's with literally everything. You could take this to any industry, fashion, beauty, beds. I don't give a shit. Pick something. It doesn't matter. You're going to find your bad stuff. But there is some positivity there. And I am shocked at just how positive TikTok has been for hunting. From our purview. We see so much positivity on TikTok that it's like, for the record, TikTok is the actual number one website in the entire world right now, above Google and YouTube. More people are spending time on TikTok than any other platform, hands down. It's a statistic, and go look it up. And so with that being said, most brands are going to start to focus their attention there inside of the next 2 to 3 years. And in doing so, like, the hunting community is there, and they're there in droves. And by and large, they're pretty positive, more positive than what I've experienced on Facebook and Instagram. And that's probably because it's newer still, and not everyone is there yet. So as people continue to flock to that particular platform, we're probably going to see more negativity coming in because we're going to reach more people, and you're going to have their trolls and so forth. But by and large, I think social media just exposes human nature as to what it is. And it just exposes things that human beings are going to do regardless of whatever media is available to them. And look, not all humans are nice people. Some of them are jackasses, and that's just the way it is. Marcus Aurelius talks about this in his book Meditations that he wrote to himself. He talks about, look, you're going to deal with dumb, stupid, mean, a-hole people, and that's part of the human experience. How you respond to them and how you let them impact you is up to you. But you're going to run into that. And he ran into that as an emperor of Rome 2,000 years ago. And honestly, nothing has actually changed, in my opinion. It's the same. You go read Meditations, and it sounds like it was written yesterday.
So I'm curious to know what the Okayest Hunter thinks about Pope and Young and Boone and Crockett scoring. Do you think that kind of takes away from the whole thing, or
no? That's a tough one. Pope and Young has done a lot to expand their reach and their audience. They've made some changes to their mission and their brand, quite literally. Their website's been updated, the brand's been updated, and so forth. I think they're trying to appease to a wider audience. Like, Okayest Hunter definitely speaks to a bigger audience than someone trying to kill big bucks, right? More people watch golf than are pro golfers. More people watch the NFL than play football. More people like to hunt than kill big bucks. So we're definitely speaking to a wider demographic, and of course we seem to be pissing off the smaller part of that audience, which is not the goal or intention. It's just a byproduct. Unfortunately, we're trying to do our best with it. But I think I don't know, man. I keep forgetting the questions. I apologize.
You're good. Pope and Young and Boone and Crockett.
No, I think I would love to know the score of the bucks that I have, just because I think that's neat. I think measuring and scoring is just, I don't know how to do it. That just goes to speak to the intricacy and technicality of how it's actually done. So there's something there. It's probably cool to know. I personally don't care about that, which is why I probably don't actually know how to do it at all. And there's something to be said about getting the biggest thing. And if that's how it's measured, fine. Do I think there's more value in looking at the teeth of a deer to determine the age? Maybe, but at some point there's a diminishing return there. If a buck gets too old, it's probably going to get pretty freaking stupid and complacent. And it's like, shooting an old geezer. Is it really that great to shoot the oldest buck in the woods? No, you want to shoot the one in its prime. And I understand the challenge that exists there. If you're going to shoot a buck in its prime, that's going to outsmart a lot of folks with its senses. There's something to be said about that. So again, that goes back to each his own, to my tag, my hunt. If that's what you're into, that's what you're into. what I have a problem with is you thinking that makes you better than. And I think it was Waddell that said, look, somewhere there's a kid that just shot a freaking monster buck that's 12. And here you are putting face paint on and you're 38 and you think it's the most masculine, badass thing in the world. And Michael Waddell on our podcast said, look, hunting don't make you badass. It's badass that you get to hunt. So just keep it in perspective. At the end of the day, it's a freaking deer. All right. Like it's a deer. It's a deer. And I will give credit to people that can do it with, a trad bow versus a compound bow versus a rifle. Those are different circumstances. At some point, you got to bring that thing in real close. And I know, and we all know that's really hard to do. So certainly going to reward and congratulate those people. But if you're going to turn it into a dick measuring contest because your ego needs it, that's fine, I guess. Just don't then be an a-hole to someone else about it. This is a community that is a brotherhood that we're all proud to be a part of, that we all have some common ground on. So just I'm trying to take the teeth out of it to some degree.
So how do we deal with negative feedback on social media when it comes to hunters bashing other hunters? Do we tell them to go fuck themselves? Do we try to make a lesson out of it? Do we try to make amends? Do we just delete the comment and move on? What's
It
the
depends on how
best
much you
route
want
to
to
go?
separate on it. Like I believe there's only so like if you have 100 energy points in a day, and for me, like those energy points need to be going to my kids and my career. Like by and large, that's it. Like I need to further my career, do a good job, do good work, and I need to be a present dad for my kids. So if all of a sudden I have 20 points to spend on them, 30 points to spend on my kids, now I'm at 50, and if I have a remaining 50 to deal with my give to my wife, and if suddenly 70 were consumed because I'm perseverating on some shit comment because I'm getting all fired up and like hot headed about it, that's detracting from my family life. That's detracting from my career. So for me, there's a piece of self-awareness that comes into it where I'm like, okay, pump the fucking brakes here. I can't like, maybe I do need to delete this comment because I just don't have the capacity or the energy points to deal with this today. However, rather than fight fire with fire, I make a concerted effort, me, myself, that sounds stupid, me, Tyler, my co-owner in this business, Greg and Derek, we are of the mindset that we ought to kill them with kindness. So as much as we can stand to tolerate the shit remarks that come through, some of the threads you can go into and it actually does resolve itself in like okay, we're good now. Like we work through that and it's fine. What happens is you get keyboard warriors, and when you challenge them, suddenly they're either going to do one of two things in my experience. They're going to like dig in and become more a-hole-ish about it because you're challenging their belief system, and that goes back to human nature. That's not like a good way to approach things. It's going to put the defenses up. So you're just going to be butting heads, which happens sometimes. But the other thing that can happen is if you take a different approach, you can soften those walls a little bit. They can come down and you can get to some resolution. And maybe that person isn't going to change, and that's okay. But we don't need to be like fighting fire with fire all of the time. So for us, because we're a brand and people are looking on to our brand and seeing what we're doing, we are not going to be the a-holes. I'm not going to go down to your level. And if that's where you're going to go with things, we'll duck out. Maybe I'll delete the comment. Maybe we'll just stop and say, cheers, good luck this season. Like we're done with that then. But most of the time, we're going to go into it with them and we're going to try to get them to see our vision and the bigger picture here. And usually I'll take that to like, look, man, we can't be the neck trying to bite the head off. Like you can't punch the guy to the left and the right of you in the face when the enemy is coming over the hill. Like we should first get our house in order, fight the fight that's coming our way. And after that, if we want to address some of these things, fine, we can address it, but you can be civil and diplomatic about it. So for us, it's always kill them with kindness. We're always going to be the bigger person in most of these situations. Every now and again, it'll get the better of me. But by and large, most of what you're going to see, and you can go look, man, you can go look on TikTok. You can see the freaking 58 comments on one thread with two dudes that are just hell bent on being an asshole. And that goes to the quote from like The Dark Knight. Like some people just like to watch the world burn. And that is what it is. They just want to stir the pot. Literally, people have admitted, like, oh, yeah, no, I'm just here to freaking stir the pot. I'm like, well, you're a jackass.
Yeah.
You're just a jackass. And in person, I'd probably freaking drink a beer with you because I can be a jackass too. But like, come on, man.
Yeah. I kind of got a little scenario kind of thing here, but kind of goes with where hunters get their ethics from. But if you take a guy, just a blank mold, and he doesn't have any friends or family that hunts, So first place he probably goes is Google or YouTube or something. He may stumble across your podcast, or he may stumble across a podcast that only talks about killing big bucks. Now, from that moment, no matter which one he clicks on is probably going to determine which route he goes, as far as like, I'm a big buck guy, or like, I'm just like an okayest guy. Do you think, like, I guess for someone like getting into hunting and doing their own thing, what's a good way to maybe not get caught up in all the unrealistic expectations and kind of stay on the straight and narrow?
Do you remember when your parents told you to not do something and you did it anyways?
Yeah.
Hey, you shouldn't do that. And you're like, fuck you. I'm going to do what I want. Like, the best way to learn is to do something yourself. So us telling someone the path they should take is irrelevant, I think, because, my parents said, don't do this, that, and the other thing. I did all of those things and I learned the hard way. And I think as humans, we tend to learn things the hard way. And I'm not saying that a hunting journey is a hard way of doing something, but, there is a journey of a hunter, and it is like, learn deer sign, deer movement, terrain, topo, wind, so forth. There is this like kind of stereotypical way that you can go about it, and it's not the same for everybody. Public land pride versus private land ownership, and then you realize that, like, look, it's not really that different. The military is like Marine Corps versus Army. It's like, well, yeah, but you're all you're all part of the United States serving a country. You're all in Iraq. You're all, you have different jobs, right? It's different parts of the armed forces and the Department of Defense. Like, Marine Corps is a spearhead, the Army occupies. Like, you're literally trained for different fucking things. So in the sense of, deer hunting, as you go through that life cycle, like I see my uncle who, and he listens, so I'm not sure if he'll pick up the pieces here to this podcast or not, but he's killed bigger deer than most anybody I've seen on social media. Bigger deer than Dan Infall, bigger deer than the Hunting Public guys, bigger deer than a lot of the Whitetail Crib guys, right? And or he could be an episode of Whitetail Cribs, to be quite honest. But he's like in his late 70s, and he still hunts, and he's a better hunter than I will probably, maybe not ever be, but he's so wise and understands deer at a chest level magnitude that he's gotten to the point where he's like, well, mature buck, not mature buck. He looks at mature bucks like a mature buck hunter might look at a spike buck, to the point where he's now just doing photography in nature and capturing that. He just likes the moments, and it'll take a lot for him to consider shooting a deer. It would have to be a colossal deer for him to shoot it at this point. And to that end, once you get to that point, it's about the memories. It's about the time of field. It's about the experience. It's about something so much different than the antlers. To the point where, like, going back to so we had someone said, oh, I used to shoot deer like that when I was 14. I'm like, well, you realize this is the internet, and 14-year-olds are on the internet and they follow our brand, and someone that 14 is hunting now today. So you just made them feel like shit, by the way. And someone is 14 right now experiencing what 14-year-olds experience in the woods, which is different than what you're going to experience. So, like, don't shit on that. So we're not saying it like we are, 36 hunting like a 14-year-old. I am doing mature buck type hunting. I don't ever want to get it twisted. I am after what I am after, because that's what I'm after right now. And if I'm doing what makes sense for me. But if you go through I'm a young hunter, I'm a mature buck hunter, at some point there's different threshold that you're going to cross where certain things are going to matter more to you than other things. And so for my uncle, it's like, he's got grandkids now and he wants to teach them how to hunt and how to hunt mature deer. He gets more value out of that than shooting the mature buck. So everyone's got their stride, their time and place to do whatever they're going to do. So I think there's just different checkpoints along the journey that people will find themselves in. And what I see, though, is the people that are in a certain checkpoint of the mature buck state, so to speak, that they feel the need to be like, I'm the best hunter, and the way that I do it is the best way. And this is the best thing you can do for deer hunting because of QDMA or whatever. I'm always just saying, well, there's more to it than that. but if that's your thing, there's a lot to challenging yourself and doing challenging things. And killing a mature animal is a really challenging thing to do. It's freaking difficult. There's a reason that only so many people are good at doing it, and there's a reason there's so much thirst of knowledge to learn how to do it, because it's not freaking easy. So I commend anybody that can do it. I think it's great. Like Cody DeQuisto has been on my podcast. He's awesome. We've talked to Zach Fehrenbaugh. He's awesome. We've talked to Infault. He's great at killing big bucks. We've talked to so many people that have killed big deer to learn how they do it. But one thing I'll note, and this is maybe a sidetrack, is people that complain that Okayest Hunters, so to speak, are decimating the gene pool and ruining the opportunity to kill big bucks. Is I've never heard any of the actual big buck killers that are publicly notable ever say that someone else is ruining their chance at killing mature buck. If you're actually good at killing deer, you're gonna go kill big deer. Period.
Yeah.
You're gonna do it. And the difference is an Okayest hunter shooting a spike buck is not even hunting on the same freaking caliber as a mature buck hunter, right? If I'm Johnny Joe Lunchbox, I'm going to go hunt the same old spot, the same old time, the same old year, the same old way every time. That's 100 yards from the road because that's the legal area which I can travel to make it okay to shoot a buck. You're not going to see a mature buck. You're going to see a spike buck. And if that's what they want to hunt, good for them. Who freaking cares? They bought a tag. They supported conservation. Good for you. They're not going to impede on your ability to kill a mature buck anyways. What are you even talking about? So I've never heard actual mature buck hunters that are successful complain about this shit. So to your question, are the people that aren't doing it complaining? Yeah, I think that's true. And where do they get it from? I have no clue. Hunting is very visceral. They learned it from, their dad and their dad and their dad and their dad, right? Like this stuff is get passed down. I have a hard time not discriminating against people, but it is something that like happens maybe subconsciously. I'm going on long rants, dude. I'm sorry. I don't know if this is how your podcast normally goes, but I'm really huffing and puffing.
It's good. It's good. I like to let my guests talk and get their thoughts out. I was kind of thinking as you were talking, maybe the last 2 minutes of this might be turned into a TikTok because I kind of like where you're going with that. But is there really a way to put an end to buck shaming and hunters bashing other hunters? Is it ever going to end? Probably not, right?
I don't know, man. We got to guest on Wired to Hunts podcast because he hit an epiphany in his hunting journey. Mark Kenyon was like, "Oh, am I taking this too seriously?" Like he literally talked about how he has taken the fun out of it for himself. So he is taking a step back, considering he is writing books, working for Meat Eater, raising a family, that maybe, just maybe, he doesn't need to beat himself up for not killing the biggest buck any longer because he stated on that episode with us that he wasn't having fun. Like, it's deer hunting. If you think about the first experience you ever had deer hunting, it was probably a ton of fun. It was exhilarating. You were excited. You were excited to see a deer, even have an opportunity to shoot one. If you shot one, you were like shitting your pants. Like what happened to that feeling if you're beating yourself up too much? And again, it goes to like, it depends on what your ambition is. Like your actions should match your ambition. If your ambition is to shoot the biggest deer and break records, you're going to have to do some shit that's really hard. You're going to have to let go of some things and do some things that are very different. I'm telling you what, I am not at that place in life to be able to do that. If I were to do that, I'd have to cancel out being a dad and having a career, honestly. Like, because it wouldn't freaking happen because it takes some serious dedication. And if you can do that, good, great. And if you want to challenge yourself, go for it. How do we end it? We have to raise awareness. I think that's kind of happening. We seem to be doing that. Other people have been doing it too. There's been writers that have published articles about deer shaming even 2 years ago as we were getting our start. I know I talked to a writer the other day that was saying their neighbor came up to them and said like, "Hey man, I'm sorry for shooting this deer. I it's not the biggest one. And, I know you take hunting pretty seriously. So I'm really sorry that happened." And the guy was like, "What the fuck? Dude, I'm sorry if that's what you gathered from me being a serious hunter. You should do whatever the hell you want. I'm happy for you. Let's go have a beer together." Like someone had enough awareness to realize that they were putting out a message that they didn't even know was impacting other people. So raising awareness, we use humor, right? We focus on humor and relatability to get our message out and to bring people in closer to the fray and realize what we're really trying to do here. But at the end of the day, it's just most people are good with this stuff. Most people are on board. There's a small percentage of folks that are being jackasses about it. And, unfortunately, a bad egg can ruin the bunch. So it's important for us to fight the good fight. We use the hashtag no buck shame. If you see someone shaming a deer, tag, use a hashtag. We'll search it. And the Okayest Hunter Nation will kill them with kindness. And what we're hoping to do then is just praise the people that have done something. Like, if it were me, what I would have liked to see is more congratulations on the deer that I got than people shitting on me. So we just want to outweigh that where we can. Going back to Gary Vaynerchuk, someone that I admire in the marketing world, is like, let's make kindness louder, and that's it. Let's do the same thing for the hunting space.
Do you have a picture of the first deer you killed? You with it?
I do somewhere. I have it. It's probably on my own personal Facebook. It might be on our Okayest Hunter somewhere. We post so much that you'd have to really dig for it. So I could probably find it if you were looking.
I'm gonna have to have it for the thumbnail for this episode.
Yeah, I can find it, and there'll be more buck shame or deer shame to come along with it, certainly.
So, I guess future of hunting, kind of just wrap it up here. But the future of hunting, the buck shaming and hunters bashing other hunters beside the point, where do you think hunting's going to be in the future? Maybe let's look at 20 years, 50 years, maybe 100 years. Not that it matters to us, but it matters to our kids and grandkids. So,
as a dad with kids and hopefully grandkids, I hope that it's still here. I hope we still have access to public lands. I hope that, it's still something that is something that we can do, honestly. Like, I will never, ever forget when I shot my first buck with my bow, and it just happened to be on public land. I don't use public land as like a badge of honor necessarily. That's all I have access to because I don't own land because I'm, poor necessarily. So it happens when you start businesses, you just all your money goes into that. But I shot the buck. It died. I couldn't believe it. Like, literally, I was like, oh my God, this is actually happening. I got one. And I called my wife on FaceTime and I said, hey, I got one. She's like, no, you didn't. I said, yes, I did. And she goes, what'd you get? I said, a buck. She's like, bullshit. I'm like, no, I really did. I swear to God. I'm like, it's right here. Look at it. She's like, is that thing dead? I'm like, of course it's dead. I'm not standing over it if it's alive. She's like, oh
as
God,
it jumps up and runs off.
yeah, right. I thought that could happen. And then she puts my daughter on, who's 3 or 4 at the time. And my daughter said, Dad, did you get one? I said, I did. And she goes, was it a buck? I said, it is. She goes, can we eat it? I said, yep. And we freaking cooked up those back straps that same night, or those loins. So, like, to me, what a moment, honestly. And with her being inquisitive about it, we do this thing called cookies and deer. And to get her, to incentivize her to watch deer hunting with me and chill on the couch and sit still and stop talking because she doesn't shut up.
Oh, that's smart. I'll take
I
notes.
will make chocolate chip cookies with her. And, I buy the tub of Nesco or whatever the hell it is, chocolate chip cookies, and we add almonds to them. And then we bake them. I have her help me with a spoon. We put on the thing on the cookie. We put in the oven. We cook them. And then we do, cookies and milk. And I will get to sit down with my daughter and my son and watch the hunting public. And that's cookies and deer. So, I certainly hope that it's around for their sake and for their kids' sake. And anything I can do to like strengthen the existing community that we have and help grow it is something that I'm deeply incentivized to do, just intrinsically, to make sure that this stays around for generations to come. Can one person change the world? I don't know. Big Sean had a rap about it. Like, can one person change the world, right? Like, I'm a big Sean guy, and I like the rap that he puts out quite a bit. I relate to it a lot. And so, yeah, am I one person that can change the world? I don't know, probably not. But as a community, can we make a difference? I think so. So I'm happy to be the face of it. If I can detract ego from as much as possible, I try to not put myself ahead of our team that we have. So.
I think you guys are doing good over there at Okayest Hunter. You seem to be growing, so I think you guys keep trekking on. You're gonna have a hell of a following here in 10 years, 20 years. You're gonna be.
We'll see. We'll see how it
number
goes.
one space, maybe. Hopefully.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So just real quick, for anybody that's maybe not listened to your podcast, do you guys have anything exciting coming up for this year, or a special guest coming on, or can you not say?
Oh yeah, no, we're guest wise. I don't know. I don't even know what's on the agenda. But we hired 6 new writers that have produced some pretty strong pieces for bigger publications like Meat Eater and Wide Open Spaces and a bunch of others. So we're happy to know that those folks feel like they can write for us. So excited for that. Our Foam Fest, our first ever in-person event, is happening in August on the 27th. That'll be fingers crossed at a brewery local to us here in Wisconsin called Hubbleton Brewery. So we're getting into our own event stuff. It's a 3D archery shoot, but really it's about flinging arrows and then drinking beers. It's not a big emphasis on flinging arrows. And we're gonna give away a bunch of stuff, a couple bear archery bows and a bunch of other things that we do with some of the partners we work with. And beyond that, we're doing some other events with some other folks. We're doing a backcountry hunters and anglers event July 31st. We're doing an event with Half Rack on August 20th. We have ours on August 27th. We're doing trade shows. We're going to do a bunch more trade shows in 2023. We've already committed to the open season trade show in March in the Wisconsin Dells. We did that one last year as our first trade show. Yeah, man. No, I don't know. That's kind of new hats are launching this week. I think we got like 500 new hats in yesterday. So we got to get those up on our site. We're going to launch flannels, new koozies, new hats. We're going to get into some product development. So yeah, we're definitely trying to move the needle where we can.
Yeah, sounds like you guys are trucking on 500 hats. That's a fuck ton of hats.
Yeah, we have more than that. I think we have like 1,000, but just 500 of them showed up yesterday. So it's getting weird. It's getting weird.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Can you tell everybody where to find Okayest Hunter? I'm sure you guys are on most social media platforms, but maybe just throw them out there just in case.
Yeah, if you go to okayesthunter.com, okayest.com, or okayesthunter.com, you'll find what you need to find there, and you can certainly find us on all social platforms: TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Reddit. We're trying to be as omnipresent as possible. We also have our own website for the podcast itself, which is just okayesthunterpodcast.com. It's a different website for the podcast, but yeah, hopefully if you listen this long and you tune in, you liked what we had to say, and then you feel curious to check out some more stuff, we'd be happy to hang out with you guys in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, be sure to check them out, guys. They do on their Facebook and LinkedIn. Probably, what all do you guys live stream your show on every week?
TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Yeah, so they got it going on over there. You can call into the show and talk to them, and it's pretty cool. Well, Eric, I'll let you get out of here. I appreciate you coming on, and I'll catch up with you.
Sounds good, buddy. Thank you.
All right, man. I'll see you. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hunt the Wild podcast. If you enjoyed the show and it's brought you some sort of value, I'd love if you could give me a rating and a review. Just a few seconds of your time can help me better understand the type of content you all enjoy, and it would mean the world to me to hear from all of you.